Ryan Gravenberch has one trick that works every time, and now he's the best 6 in the league. And here's why. As Gravenberch receives the ball from his left back, he already knows the oncoming pressure on the right hand side. So as he drops his shoulder and looks to turn, his first touch lifts over the midfielder's foot. He's able to ride the challenge and drive into space. But this was just level 1 of 5 different scenarios that Gravenberch was able to wriggle out of, with them each getting harder and harder as we go through. The last one being almost impossible, all through his one trick that works every time. So let's go to level 2 and how he got from here to here in just one touch. Now, Liverpool use lots of shapes to build the ball through the pitch, and when the ball is with the goalkeeper, we'll see the 2 centre-backs split either side, pushing the fullbacks slightly more advanced, keeping those narrow passing options, not hugging the touchline, but enough width to pull the opposition's press slightly apart. Then 2 of the midfielders, Gravenberch and McAllister, will drop into those gaps, offering a passing option, with Szoboszlai pushing into the last line of attack. But oftentimes we'll see the ball go long from the goalkeeper, hitting the likes of Salah and Nunes, who can hold up the play, allowing for the 2 midfielders and fullbacks to then create the attacking overload. So fairly often Gravenberch isn't used in deep build-up, but he is so effective in this middle third of the pitch. In settled possession, Liverpool have this almost swinging back line that at times can be a 4, but often can be a 2, with the 2 centre-backs holding the ball, enticing the pressure from the first line. And this is where Gravenberch comes into his own. He operates in these really awkward distances between the first and second line, giving the midfielders a dilemma whether or not to push and leave the space in behind them, or continue to sit and allow the strikers who are being enticed forward to cover the passing lane. But the Dutchman's positioning behind these strikers, operating in the shadow on the blind side, oftentimes following the pressure and then creating that space for himself, allows for the centre-backs to almost always find him in between the lines. As we can see here, he's standing in those awkward gaps, and as Bologna don't commit to their man-to-man press, he finds himself in all sorts of room, being able to receive the ball from Van Dijk, now with the midfield pressure arriving late. And because that marking is no longer touch tight, he's able to judge the speed of the ball and use it against the momentum of the midfielder. And with one touch, he finds himself here with plenty of forward passing options, now threatening the back line of Bologna. But this was only possible due to an attribute that Ryan Gravenberch might be the world's best at, and it seems to be working every time. But will it continue to work as the scenarios get harder and harder? Well, let's go to level 3 and how Ryan Gravenberch moves an entire midfield without even touching the ball. It's late into the game versus Leverkusen, and Gravenberch is stood between the 2 strikers, giving short, simple passes to his centre-back, trying to inch the pressure forward while still threatening that ball through the lines. And as the ball is given to the left-back, Leverkusen jump to Liverpool's back line, and Gravenberch follows this pressure. Those small passes between him and Van Dijk now become a possibility between him and Robertson. So Leverkusen also commit their midfield press to follow the deeper movement of Gravenberch, which opens up a nice bit of space for Robertson to chip a ball into in behind the Leverkusen midfield. And suddenly Liverpool have a 3v2 scenario. And this was all orchestrated by Gravenberch offering those short passes between him and his back line, enticing the pressure from behind him that Liverpool can then exploit. Somehow he's managed to move a midfield without barely touching the ball, and he can do the same thing with the ball at his feet. This is a bonus before we go on to level 4, where it starts to get really difficult. We start with the 6 on the ball, as Leverkusen have tracked back, beginning to set up their block on the edge of their own 18. Most players would look for that switch or play the ball backwards to build up again. But what Gravenberch does is simply wait. He stays patient, holds onto the ball, and even turns his back to play, but it's all with the intention of enticing the pressure forward. And it works. When he eventually does turn, Leverkusen have inched slightly forward, so when he picks up his head, he can find a pass to Cody Gakpo, who's now isolated his fullback in a 1v1 situation, and with one pass, he's taken 4 players out of the game. To me, level 3 shows that he can manipulate midfields just by the spaces that he occupies, but can he do it with the ball? Will his one trick still work? Well, let's up the ante and go to level 4, because this is where things get very difficult. As Gravenberch receives the ball from McAllister with pressure on his right, he takes the ball on his back foot, enticing that pressure, causing his man to commit. So with his next touch, he can use the momentum against him and break the lines that way, backing his physical ability to drive through the midfield. And then he squared up against Kamara, one of the best 6s in the league last year. And most midfielders would look for the pass left or right, but Gravenberch continues to back his physical ability, the length of his stride, the power in his running, to continue breaking the lines by simply driving through them. But what's most interesting is the direction of his running. We see that Kamara has shifted his body weight forwards and is looking to take Gravenberch down the line, and the Dutchman obliges. He continues his warpath through the Aston Villa midfield, almost using the momentum of Kamara in his advantage, riding it, and breezes past him with relative ease. There's been no skills or turns in this scenario. The first and second touch is used to take away the midfielder's momentum, and the third and fourth is simply a battle of physicality, and not many people are going to beat Ryan Gravenberch in that scenario. It's pure directness and power in his running, which again has only been possible due to this one trick that at the minute has worked every time. But we've got level 5, and level 5 genuinely seemed impossible. But first, let me finally tell you what this trick is. In every scenario, the reason that Ryan Gravenberch has been able to wriggle out of all of them when he's being marked by 5 men, when there's no space whatsoever, is because I believe right now in world football, Ryan Gravenberch might be one of the best scanners. His ability to constantly look and check and paint a picture in his mind of where the players are on the pitch, both the opposition and his teammates, so that when he receives the ball, he has a solution like that. When the ball is with the centre-back and Gravenberch is operating in these awkward spaces, when he checks his surroundings, he roughly knows the box that he's in, the 2 players in front and behind him. But by the time the team locks onto their press or the ball is triggered by the centre-back, within a split second, the picture can change to something more like this. And if you haven't checked your surroundings, then you're going to be pressed to oblivion in the centre of the park. Of course, his physical attributes and his dribbling ability all make it easier for him. But before he even receives the ball, he's checking his surroundings 3 to 5 times to constantly know what's happening, because the picture changes like that. But Ryan Gravenberch seems a step above from anyone, and it shows in all of the scenarios. He was able to see the pressure here, here, here and here due to his elite scanning. But will he be able to wriggle out of this scenario, being pressed from all angles by 4 players? This is level 5, and it doesn't get harder than this. To be honest, it's a bit of a hospital pass from Alexander-Arnold, just due to the sheer amount of pressure that the 6 is under. But he takes his first touch really calmly, on his back foot, again enticing the pressure, making those midfielders commit to their press. So his next touch, he can take the momentum away from them. He takes it on his back foot. He then drives with the ball with his next touch through the center of those 2 players, using Szoboszlai as a bit of a shield. And then he's squared up by a defender, similar to the Kamara situation in level 4. And again, he doesn't do anything fancy. He backs his physical ability to simply run through the centre back, brushes him off off with ease, and with such little touches, Gravenberch has gotten out of this position and can now threaten behind the Bournemouth back line. And it is only possible because in this moment he already knew the picture around him, because I believe Ryan Gravenberch is one of the best scanners in world football, and so he's been able to perfect the art of movement.